Reaper thought the worst day of his life was when doctors told him his newborn daughter would never see his face. 6 years later, a shaking 11-year-old homeless boy named Marcus walked up to them outside a Charleston pizza joint and said, "I can see what's blocking her vision, and I can remove it." What Marcus pulled from Lily's eyes were two black crystals that shouldn't exist. The moment Lily saw her father's face for the first time, 3 black SUVs pulled up across the street. Armed men stepped out, moving toward the restaurant with deadly purpose. Marcus whispered for words that changed everything. "They're here for me. Welcome to Hell's Angels family." If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to take you on a ride you won't forget. To my day one subscribers, my real ones who've been here from the start, I love y'all. Thank you for showing up every single time. Before we jump in, let me pray over you real quick. God, I'm asking you right now to bless every single person watching this. Cover them with your protection. Bless their family, their health, their finances. Give them peace in the storm and strength when they feel weak. Let miracles happen in their life today, in Jesus' name. Amen. Now let's get into it. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about a blind girl who gained her sight. It's a story about a homeless boy with an impossible gift, a biker who'd burned the world down for his daughter, and the dangerous people who've been watching them both from the shadows since the day they were born. The rumble of the Harley shook the glass front of Tony's Pizza on King Street as Reaper eased the bike into a spot right by the door. The summer heat in Charleston pressed down like a wet blanket, making the air around the exhaust shimmer. Parents pulled their kids a little closer when they saw his vest. The red and white patch on his back said everything they needed to know. Hell's Angels. Reaper killed the engine and swung his leg over the bike, the leather creaking as he moved. Behind him, Lily slid off the seat, small hands feeling for the ground before her sneakers touched the pavement. Her white cane tapped twice on the concrete, then folded back as she gripped his fingers instead. She didn't need the cane when he was there. His hand was the only guide she trusted. "Dad, is it busy?" Lily asked, her clouded blue eyes drifting somewhere over his shoulder. "Not too bad, sweetheart," Reaper said, voice rough from too many cigarettes and late nights at the shipyard. "You'll still get your pepperoni slice." She smiled, that same soft smile that had kept him breathing on days he thought he couldn't do it anymore. 6 years of doctors, tests, and specialists from Charleston to Atlanta and back again. 6 years of the same answer dressed up in different words. "Her eyes are fine. We don't know why she can't see." He squeezed her hand a little tighter. He hated this part, the moment when people realized the scary biker was guiding a blind little girl. Their faces always shifted. First fear, then confusion, then pity. He could stomach their fear. The pity made his fists itch. They were almost at the door to Tony's when a voice came from near the alley. "Hey, excuse me, sir?" Reaper turned sharply, putting his body between Lily and the sound. A boy stepped out of the shadow of the building, hands visible, shoulders hunched like he was ready to bolt. He couldn't have been more than 11. Too skinny, like his clothes belonged to a bigger kid and he'd shrunk inside them. Dark hair, dirt smudged along his jaw, sneakers blown out at the sides. "Keep walking, Lily," Reaper murmured. "Hand on my vest." She obeyed instantly, fingers clutching the leather at the small of his back. I'm not trying to start anything," the boy said quickly, raising both palms. I need to talk to you." To her. Reaper's eyes narrowed. "You don't need to talk to my kid." The boy's gaze flicked to Lily's face and held there, not in the way people usually stared at her cloudy eyes. No curiosity, no discomfort. Just focus, sharp and scared. "She's blind," the boy said quietly. "Since she was born, right?" Something in Reaper's chest went cold. "How do you know that?" he asked, voice dropping. The boy swallowed, but didn't back down. Can I tell you after you get her inside? Please, just let her sit down first. I won't touch her. I swear." Lily tugged on Reaper's vest. "Dad? Who is it?" "Just some kid," Reaper said, not taking his eyes off the boy. "We're going inside." He opened the glass door, the smell of hot cheese and tomato sauce hitting them immediately. The owner, an older guy with a New York accent and a soft spot for Lily, waved them in. "Same as always?" he called. "Yeah," Reaper said. Give me a booth in the corner. He guided Lily to their usual spot. Back to the wall. Good view of the door. Habit. Survival. Even with the cut mostly hanging in the closet these days, he never sat with his back exposed. Lily ran her fingers lightly across the table edge, mapping it in her mind. Is the neon sign still buzzing? She asked. Reaper glanced up at the flickering red open sign. Yeah, sounds like it's about to die any day now. She grinned. Good. I like the way it hums. He loved how she talked about sound the way other kids talked about colors. As they settled in, Reaper saw movement out of the corner of his eye. The same boy from outside stood on the sidewalk, hovering near the window, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He looked like he was arguing with himself. Reaper tried to ignore him, but the kid didn't walk away. By the time Tony brought over 2 slices and a soda, Reaper's patience was gone. Watch your food, he told Lily. I'll be right back. Don't move. He slid out of the booth and stepped back through the door, letting it swing shut behind him. The heat hit him again, thick and close. The boy straightened, but didn't run. You got about 10 seconds, Reaper said. Use am smart. My name is Marcus, the boy said. Hi. I sleep behind the 7-Eleven down the street. I'm not crazy, okay? Just listen. Reaper folded his arms. Talking fast doesn't equal talking smart. Marcus took a breath, then pointed directly at Lily through the glass. Her eyes, he said. There's something in them. Both of them. 2 tiny pieces of, I don't know, something. They're not supposed to be there. They're stuck behind her pupils. That's why she can't see. The hair on Reaper's arms stood up. He stepped closer. Who told you that? You've been following us. You work for one of those clinics. Marcus shook his head so hard his hair fell into his face. No, nobody told me. I can just see it. I didn't know what it was at first, but when she got off the bike, it was like seeing glass in someone's foot, but in her eyes. Reaper stared at him, anger warring with something else, something he refused to name. You're saying you can see inside people, he said flatly. Not like that, Marcus said. Just when something doesn't belong. I didn't ask for it. It started a few weeks ago. I thought I was losing it until I saw her. I've never seen anything like what's in her eyes. Reaper almost laughed. Almost. This is the worst hustle I've heard in a while, kid. Marcus flinched, but he didn't back away. I'm not asking you for money, he said. I'm asking you to let me try to help her. Now Reaper did laugh, but there was no humor in it. You? Help her? You're what, 11? You stink like you haven't seen a shower since Christmas. And you think I'm gonna let you touch my little girl's eyes? Marcus's jaw clenched. You think I like this? You think I want to walk around seeing what's wrong with people? I can't turn it off. He pointed again, his hand trembling. Whatever is in her eyes, it's not bone, it's not blood, it's not human. It looks solid, like tiny black stones. If I can get to them, I can pull them out. Reaper's heart hammered. Black stones. His mind flashed back, uninvited, to a night in the hospital 6 years earlier. The doctor's tight face. The file folder she wouldn't let him see. The way one nurse avoided his gaze like she was afraid of him asking the wrong question. He'd always felt, deep down, that there was more to Lily's blindness than it's a mystery. He took a step closer to Marcus, getting right in his face. You touch her and you hurt her. I will end you, Reaper said quietly. You hear me? Marcus swallowed. Yes, sir. Reaper held his stare a second longer, then jerked his head toward the door. Come inside, he said. You breathe wrong around her. You're back on that sidewalk. Tony glanced up when they walked in together, eyes flicking from Reaper to Marcus and back, but he knew better than to ask questions. Lily, Reaper said as they reached the booth. There's a kid here. His name's Marcus. He wants to look at your eyes. You okay with that? Lily's mouth parted. Is he a doctor? No, Marcus said quickly. I'm nobody. Just my eyes work different than other people's. I think I can help you. But if you don't want me to, I won't. There was a silence. Then Lily tilted her head, focusing on the sound of his voice. You sound like you're scared, she said softly. Marcus let out a weak laugh. Yeah, I am. Dad? Lily asked. Reaper's throat felt tight. He didn't want to say yes. He didn't want to say no and then lie awake every night wondering what would have happened if he'd let the kid try. I'll be right here, Reaper said. You say stop, He stops. Got it, Marcus? Yes, sir, Marcus whispered. He slid into the booth across from Lily, moving slowly, like any sudden motion might spook her. Up close, he looked even younger. Small hands, bitten nails, a faint bruise yellowing along his cheekbone. Can I touch your face? Lily asked him. Marcus blinked. Oh yeah? Sure. She reached out, fingertips brushing his cheek, tracing the line of his nose, brow, jaw, mapping him. Marcus held perfectly still, eyes stinging for a reason that had nothing to do with his strange sight. You feel like a kid, she said with a small smile. Not a scary one. Marcus huffed out a shaky breath. Good, 'cause I'm not. He pulled back just enough to focus on her eyes. Even without whatever he claimed to see, they were unusual, pale blue, clouded, not milky but unfocused. Empty. Okay, he said quietly. I need you to look straight ahead. I know you can't see me, but just pretend you can. Lily nodded, her lashes trembling. Reaper's fingers dug into the edge of the table. Marcus leaned in, squinting, letting that unwanted second sight slide into focus. It was like adjusting a lens he didn't ask for. The restaurant faded. The noise, the smell of garlic and cheese, the clatter of plates, all of it dropped into the background. And there they were. In each of Lily's eyes, just behind the pupil, something gleamed. Not a reflection, not part of her. Two tiny, razor-sharp fragments, blacker than shadow, angular like broken glass. They sat in the exact path where light should have traveled. He sucked in a breath. They're real, he whispered before he could stop himself. What? Reaper snapped. Marcus licked his lips. I can see them. Both of them. They look like tiny crystals. They're blocking everything. He knew how crazy he sounded. He knew if someone had said this to him, he'd have told them to get lost. But he also knew what he saw. I think I can reach them, he said. But you have to hold her still. And you have to trust me not to hurt her. Reaper stared at him, mind racing. Every instinct screamed to grab Lily, walk out, and never look back. But another voice, quieter, more dangerous, whispered, what if this is the one chance she gets? Will it hurt? Lily asked, her voice small. Marcus met her empty gaze. I don't know, he said honestly. Maybe just a little. But I'll stop if you want me to. I promise. She took a breath, then another. Her small hand searched for Reaper's and squeezed. I want to try, she said. Dad, I want to know what you look like. The words cut him more deeply than any knife ever had. Reaper nodded once, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Do it, he said. But if she cries out, you're done. Marcus wiped his fingers on his shirt, then again on a napkin, as if that could erase the dirt and the years of street living. His hands shook. He forced them to steady. Okay, Lily, he murmured. I'm going to touch your eyelid, real gentle. Don't move, okay? Okay, she whispered. He lifted his right hand toward her face, heart pounding, every muscle tense. His fingers hovered a breath away from Lily's eye. And just as he was about to make contact, the front door of Tony's slammed open behind them, hard enough to rattle the glasses. A shadow fell across the booth. Reaper, a harsh voice said from the doorway. We need to talk. Right now. Marcus froze, his fingers inches from Lily's eye. Reaper's head snapped toward the doorway, instincts flaring like a struck match. The voice belonged to someone he knew too well. Bruiser, one of the older Hell's Angels who didn't show up anywhere without a reason. The big man stood framed in the entrance of Tony's, leather vest open over a faded black tee, eyes locked on Reaper with a tight, urgent look that had nothing to do with casual small talk. Lily flinched at the slam of the door, her fingers tightening around Reaper's hand. Marcus's hand froze midair, hovering inches from her eyelid, his breath shallow and uneven. Not now, Reaper said through clenched teeth, never taking his arm away from Lily's shoulders. We're busy. Bruiser's stare flicked from Reaper to Marcus, then to Lily's clouded eyes. Something shifted in his expression, a flash of recognition, or maybe fear. It can't wait, Bruiser said, voice low but firm. You need to hear this, brother. Reaper wanted to tell him to shove it, to turn around and walk back out the door. But Bruiser wasn't the type to get dramatic over nothing. If he'd tracked Reaper down in the middle of King Street at dinner time, it meant trouble had already found them. Lily swallowed. Dad? What's happening? Nothing you gotta worry about, Reaper said, forcing calm into his tone. He glanced at Marcus. Hand down. For now. Marcus slowly lowered his hand, his shoulders sagging as the moment slipped away. He slid out of the booth, giving Lily space, eyes never leaving her face. Reaper stood and stepped toward Bruiser, but not far, still close enough to reach Lily in a stride. This about the shipyard? Reaper asked. Because if my foreman ratted to you about. It's not about your job, Bruiser cut in. He jerked his chin toward the street. It's about what you brought to the clubhouse last week. Reaper's jaw tightened. The crystals. He'd taken those tiny black fragments, pulled from Lily's eyes in a different version of this future that hadn't happened yet, and shown them to the club, asking questions he wasn't supposed to ask. Now, the timeline was shifting in front of him, driven by an 11-year-old homeless boy and a desperate father willing to risk anything for his daughter. Reaper glanced back at Lily and Marcus. Lily sat with her hands folded in her lap, the untouched slice of pizza cooling on her plate. Marcus hovered at the edge of the booth, eyes darting between the two bikers like a stray dog expecting to be kicked. Talk, Reaper said. Right here. Bruiser's mouth pressed into a hard line. You really want me saying this in front of your kid? In front of that boy? Marcus stiffened but stayed quiet. Reaper weighed his options. Leaving Lily alone in the booth was not one of them. He could feel the eyes of other customers on his back, the tension tightening the air around their corner. Then keep it short, Reaper said. You already dragged it into my day. Bruiser glanced again at Marcus, then lowered his voice. You remember that shipment we ran through Atlanta about 10 years back? The one Axel swore we'd never mention again. Reaper's stomach nodded. Yeah. It's back, Bruiser said. Different city, same people. They've been asking questions. About you. About your daughter. And about some kid that matches his description. Marcus's eyes widened. Reaper's blood ran cold. You're sure? Bruiser nodded once. Axel sent me. Said to tell you to get off the street. Now. You're not just some ex-member with a job at the docks anymore. You're leverage. The word lodged in Reaper's chest like shrapnel. Leverage. If this story hooked you already, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. He looked back at Lily. She sat still, but Reaper knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders, the way her thumb rubbed small circles against her palm when she felt nervous and tried to hide it. Why would they care about Lily, he asked. Bruiser hesitated, then said the one thing Reaper wasn't ready to hear. Because whatever was in that shipment, it wasn't just drugs, he said. It was tech. Medical. Experimental. Axel thinks your little girl might be connected to it. Marcus sucked in a breath loud enough that Reaper heard it. I knew it, Marcus whispered. Reaper turned on him. What did you just say? Marcus swallowed hard but didn't back down. Whatever's in her eyes, it doesn't look natural. Not like an injury. It looks like something someone put there. On purpose. Bruiser stared at Marcus, eyebrows knitting. You can't see that just by looking. Yes, sir, Marcus said quietly. I can. Reaper ran a hand over his face, the weight of it all pressing down. Years of suspicion about Lily's condition. The crystals he'd once imagined holding under a lamp, trying to understand. The unsettled feeling that the hospital hadn't told him everything. Now he had Bruiser warning him about old shipments and dangerous people, and a homeless kid claiming to see foreign objects buried in his daughter's eyes. He realized there was no more time for being cautious. Sit, Reaper told Marcus, nodding to the other side of the booth. Bruiser, shut the door and stop blocking the AC. You're making people stare. Bruiser grumbled, but did as he was told, stepping inside and letting the door swing shut behind him. The restaurant's noise rose around them again. Clinking plates, low conversation, the hum of the ancient neon sign. Reaper slid back into the booth next to Lily. Marcus sat across from them, anxious and wired, while Bruiser loomed at the edge like a guard dog that had seen too many bad days. Explain, Reaper said. All of it. Fast. Marcus took a breath. I've been on the streets for almost 2 years. I don't remember my dad. My mom died in an overdose behind a gas station. After that, nobody really wanted a kid like me. I bounced around until I stopped bouncing and just fell out. He said it matter of fact, like he'd told the story in his head too many times. 3 weeks ago, I was digging through a dumpster behind some warehouse near the port, Marcus continued. I found a metal case. Looked fancy, company logo on it. I tried to open it, but it shocked me hard. After that, my vision changed. Bruiser shifted. What warehouse? Marcus thought. Big white building, blue letters. Something like Helios Biomedical on the side. Bruiser swore under his breath. Reaper's eyes narrowed. You know them? Bruiser nodded grimly. They're one of the names Axel heard in Atlanta. Research company with a clean public image and dirty money behind it. We ran product for people tied to them, once. Didn't ask questions. Should've. Marcus looked between them, confused but pressing on. Ever since I touched that box, I see wrong things, he said. Not all the time, just when something doesn't belong inside somebody. Like glass, or a piece of metal, or whatever's in her eyes. It's like my vision zooms in and points at it. Lily shivered, but didn't pull away. So you can see what the doctors missed? I think so, Marcus said. Maybe they didn't know where to look. Or didn't want to. Reaper's mind flashed back to the night Lily was born. The rushed conversations in the hallway. The way the doctor avoided his questions. The nurse who flinched when he raised his voice. He'd chalked it up to stress and grief. Now, the pieces started to feel like they'd been laid out for a puzzle someone never wanted him to solve. If they did something to her, Reaper said slowly, they did it while I was still trying to understand why my baby couldn't see my face. Bruiser cleared his throat. Axel thinks the crystals you found before were part of whatever they tried. If they move the operation here under a new name, then the people who paid us once might be looking for loose ends. Reaper didn't like the sound of that. You calling my kid a loose end? I'm calling her valuable, Bruiser said. And that scares me more. Lily's voice came out small, but steady. Dad, if someone did this to me, shouldn't we try to undo it? Reaper looked at her. The girl who'd learned every corner of their small apartment by touch. Who traced his scars like landmarks. Who'd never seen the ocean a few miles from their home, even though she listened to it sound like a prayer. The idea of letting a homeless boy lay hands on her eyes made every protective instinct in him rage. But the idea of walking away and pretending this conversation never happened felt worse. He turned to Marcus. Tell me exactly what you'd do. Marcus straightened a little. I'd have her sit still. I'd get as close as I can without touching her eyeball at first. When I focus, it's like the thing I'm looking at comes forward. I think if I concentrate, I can grab it. Not with force, but like I'm pulling a splinter out. It's small. I don't know if it'll hurt, but I know where it is. That's more than any doctor had. Bruiser frowned. Kid, if you mess this up. I know, Marcus said. You don't have to threaten me. I get it. He looked at Lily, not at the bikers, not at the fear radiating off Reaper's shoulders, just at her. If you were my little sister, Marcus said quietly, I'd want someone to at least try. The words hung in the air. If this tension hits you, like and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Reaper dragged a hand down his face. There was no scenario here that didn't involve risk. The question was which risk he could live with. He thought of all the nights Lily had asked him to describe colors, of the way she repeated the descriptions back to herself, as if memorizing a story she'd never experienced, of how she'd pressed her hand against the TV screen when bright cartoons flashed by, feeling the warmth instead of seeing the light. Bruiser, Reaper said, eyes still on Lily. Stand by the door. If anyone walks in who looks like they don't belong, you bounce them hard. Bruiser blinked. You're really going to let this happen here? In a pizza joint? You got a better sterile environment for miracles? Reaper shot back. Bruiser hesitated, then gave a short nod and moved toward the entrance, positioning himself like a wall between the sidewalk and the small restaurant. Reaper turned to Lily. Last chance to back out, kiddo. She lifted her chin. No. I want to try. I trust you, Dad. And I trust Marcus. Marcus's eyes shone with something like panic and determination mixed together. Reaper slid into the booth beside Lily, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers. He wrapped one arm around her shoulders, anchoring her. You move when I say move, he told Marcus. You stop when I say stop. You breathe wrong. We're done. Yes, sir, Marcus said. He wiped his fingers again, even though it did nothing to erase the street from his skin, then leaned in slowly. The restaurant seemed to shrink around them. The sounds blurred, as if they were underwater. "Okay, Lily," Marcus murmured. "Look straight ahead. Imagine there's a light in front of you. Just focus on that idea." Lily nodded slightly, lashes trembling. Marcus let his strange sight slide into place. The world narrowed to her eyes and the foreign objects embedded within them. The tiny black fragments gleamed at him, wrong and sharp, like splinters jammed into flesh. He exhaled through his nose, steadying himself. Then, with hands more careful than any he'd ever used in his life, he moved his right index finger toward the inner corner of Lily's eye. Reaper's grip tightened around his daughter. "That's close enough," Reaper warned. "I'm not touching her eyeball," Marcus whispered. "Just her eyelid." His fingertip brushed the delicate skin near Lily's tear duct. She flinched but stayed still. "Does it hurt?" Reaper asked. "A little," Lily said. "But it's okay." Marcus focused, the world falling away. In his mind, the tiny fragment pulled forward like a metal sliver drawn to a magnet. There was a pressure, a resistance, then a strange sensation, as if his fingertip had sunk into something colder than the air around them. He swallowed and pulled back, just a fraction, imagining the shard following him. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then Lily gasped. "It's bright," she whispered. "Dad, something's bright." Reaper's heart slammed. "What do you mean, bright?" he demanded. Marcus didn't answer. He concentrated on the sensation, gently tugging at the invisible splinter only he could perceive. Slowly, ever so slowly, he felt it slide, like dragging a grain of sand across glass. Lily's fingers dug into Reaper's arm. Her breathing turned shaky. "Almost there," Marcus whispered. "Almost." A small, wet sound broke the tension. Reaper saw it before Marcus did. A tiny dark speck emerging near the corner of Lily's eye, suspended in a thin sheen of tears. It looked like nothing. Like a piece of dirt. Like a fleck of ash. Marcus flinched back, panting, his fingertip trembling. "There," he breathed. "One of them. I think that's one." Lily squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them again. This time, her gaze didn't drift in the same empty way. It landed, clumsy, unfocused, but landed, somewhere near Reaper's face. "Dad," she whispered. "Is that you?" His chest seized. "What do you see?" "I don't know," she said, voice breaking. "It's like shapes. Shadows. But something's there. Not just darkness anymore." Marcus stared at the tiny speck on the napkin Reaper had grabbed to catch it. It glinted faintly under the fluorescent lights, darker than any natural fragment had a right to be. He swallowed, then lifted his gaze to Reaper. "That's one," Marcus said hoarsely. "There's another behind her other eye. If we get that one too, I think she'll see all the way, not just shadows." Reaper looked at his daughter, at the tentative way her eyes tried to lock onto his outline, then at the speck of impossible darkness on the napkin. For the first time in 6 years, hope didn't feel like a cruel joke. If you want to see how far this goes, like and subscribe before the next twist. He turned back to Marcus, every decision he'd ever made boiling down to the one he was about to make. "Okay, kid," Reaper said quietly. "You got one. Now let's see if you can give my little girl the rest of her life back." Marcus nodded, sweat beading at his hairline. He lifted his hand again, this time toward Lily's other eye, knowing that whatever happened next wouldn't just change her world. It would drag all of them into something none of them were prepared to face. Marcus's hand trembled as he moved toward Lily's left eye. The second extraction should have been easier. He knew what to expect now, understood the pull and resistance. But his muscles felt like they'd been wrung dry, and a dull ache pulsed behind his own eyes, spreading into his temples like something was draining out of him with every second he used this ability. "You okay?" Reaper asked, catching the way Marcus swayed slightly in his seat. "Yeah," Marcus lied. "Just takes more out of me than I thought." Lily sat perfectly still, her right eye now tracking movement, clumsy and uncertain, like a baby learning to focus, but tracking. She kept looking at Reaper's face, then down at her hands, then back up, her expression caught between wonder and terror. "I can see your vest," she whispered. The patches. They are red and white. Reaper's throat closed. Yes, sweetheart. Red and white. She smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks, and it was the most beautiful and heartbreaking thing he'd ever seen. Marcus steadied himself, leaning in again. This time, when his finger hovered near Lily's other eye, the extraction went faster. The fragment slid free with less resistance, as if it knew it had already lost. Marcus caught it on another napkin, breathing hard, his vision swimming. The moment the second crystal cleared her eye, Lily gasped, loud and sharp. Color flooded her world. Not shapes, not shadows. Full, vivid, overwhelming reality. She saw Reaper's face for the first time. The scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun, the gray threading through his beard. She saw Marcus across from her, pale and exhausted, dirt smudged on his cheek, eyes too old for his young face. "Dad," she breathed, reaching for him with shaking hands. "You're real. You're so real." Reaper pulled her into his chest, his own eyes burning. He didn't trust himself to speak. Bruiser turned away from the door, his rough expression cracking for just a second before he cleared his throat and looked back out at the street. Tony, the owner, stood frozen behind the counter, a dish rag in his hands, staring at the booth like he'd just witnessed something out of a storybook. Marcus slumped back against the booth, his head spinning. The two tiny crystals sat on the napkins between them, dark and unnatural under the fluorescent lights. "We need to move," Bruiser said suddenly, his voice cutting through the moment. "Now." Reaper's head snapped up. "What?" Bruiser pointed through the window. 3 black SUVs had pulled up across the street, engines idling, windows tinted so dark they looked like voids. "They're here," Bruiser said grimly. "And they didn't come for pizza." Reaper's blood turned to ice. He scooped up the napkins with the crystals, shoving them into his vest pocket, then grabbed Lily's hand. "Marcus, move." "Back door." "Now." Marcus scrambled out of the booth, legs unsteady. Lily clung to Reaper's arm, her newly seeing eyes wide with fear as she watched the SUVs through the glass. "Dad, who are they?" she asked. "People we don't want to meet," Reaper said. Tony stepped forward. "Go through the kitchen. Out the alley. I'll slow them down." Reaper nodded once, gratitude unspoken, and pushed Marcus and Lily toward the back. Bruiser followed, one hand on the knife strapped to his belt. They burst through the kitchen, past startled cooks and bubbling pots of marinara, and hit the back door at a run. The alley behind Tony's was narrow, lined with dumpsters and fire escapes. The asphalt cracked and uneven. Reaper's Harley sat out front, useless now. "This way," Bruiser said, pointing toward the far end of the alley where it opened onto a side street. "My bike's 2 blocks over." They ran. Lily stumbled twice, her depth perception still adjusting, but Reaper kept her upright. Marcus ran beside them, breath ragged, legs burning. Behind them, the sound of car doors slamming echoed through the alley. "They're coming," Marcus gasped. Reaper risked a glance back. 4 men in tactical gear rounded the corner, moving fast, weapons drawn but not raised, yet. "Go, go," Bruiser shouted. They burst onto the side street, and Bruiser's motorcycle, a battered road king, sat parked against the curb. He threw his leg over it, kicking the engine to life. "Get on," he yelled. Reaper lifted Lily onto the back, then Marcus, then climbed on himself, sandwiching both kids between him and Bruiser. It was too many people, too much weight, but there was no time to argue. The engine roared, and Bruiser peeled out just as the tactical team hit the street. One of them raised a hand, shouting something Reaper couldn't hear over the engine. They didn't shoot. That was the only mercy. Bruiser tore through Charleston streets, weaving between cars, ignoring red lights, the bike groaning under the load. Lily pressed her face into Reaper's back, eyes squeezed shut. Marcus gripped the seat with white knuckles, his head pounding like a drum. "Where are we going?" Reaper shouted over the wind. "Clubhouse," Bruiser yelled back. "Axel needs to see this." They rode hard for 15 minutes, the city blurring into a smear of brick and asphalt, until they reached the outskirts of North Charleston. The Hells Angels clubhouse sat behind a chain-link fence a squat concrete building with bikes lined up out front like sentries. Bruiser skidded to a stop, and they all tumbled off, shaking and breathless. Axel stepped out of the clubhouse before they'd even reached the door. He was older than Reaper, late 50s, with a shaved head and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. His eyes locked onto Reaper, then dropped to Lily. "She can see," Axel said flatly. It wasn't a question. Reaper nodded. The kid pulled something out of her eyes. 2 fragments. "Got them right here." He pulled the napkins from his pocket and unfolded them carefully. The tiny black crystals glinted in the fading sunlight. Axel's face went pale. "Get inside," he said. "All of you. Right now." They followed him into the clubhouse, a dim space that smelled like motor oil, cigarettes, and old leather. A few other members looked up from a poker game in the corner, but Axel waved them off. He led Reaper, Lily, Marcus, and Bruiser into a back room, his office, and shut the door. "Let me see them," Axel said. Reaper handed over the napkins. Axel held one up to the light, his jaw tightening. "I was afraid of this," he muttered. "Afraid of what?" Reaper demanded. Axel set the crystal down carefully, as if it might explode. 20 years ago, he said slowly, we ran a job for a company called Helios Biomedical. They paid us to move cargo from Atlanta to Charleston. No questions asked. We didn't look inside the crates. We just moved them. Marcus stiffened. "Helios. That's the name I saw on the warehouse." Axel's eyes flicked to him, sharp and calculating. "You the kid who can see things?" Marcus nodded. "Then you're the reason they're here," Axel said. "You touched something you weren't supposed to. Activated something. And now they know." "Know what?" Lily asked, her voice small. Axel looked at her, and for a moment, something almost like guilt crossed his face. "That shipment we moved," he said, "wasn't just research equipment. It was live test subjects. Infants. Babies who'd been altered. Implanted with nanotechnology designed to interface with the optic nerve." Reaper's world tilted. "You're telling me," he said, voice dangerously quiet, "that my daughter was part of an experiment? That you knew?" "I didn't know," Axel said quickly. "Not until years later, when one of the scientists went public and got himself killed for it. By then, the trail was cold. I thought it was over." "It's not over," Marcus said. "They're still doing it. I found their stuff. And whatever they put in me when I touched that case, it's connected to what was in Lily's eyes." Axel swore under his breath. "They're not going to let you walk away," he said. "Either of you. You're proof their program exists. And they'll do anything to erase that proof. If you need to know what happens next, like and subscribe right now." Reaper's hands curled into fists. "Then we fight." "With what?" Axel asked. "We're bikers, not soldiers. These people have money, resources, and no conscience." "I don't care," Reaper said. "They hurt my little girl. They put those things in her eyes. And now they're coming for her again. No, we end this." Axel studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right," he said, "but we're going to need more than anger. We need leverage." Marcus spoke up, his voice shaky but determined. "I know where the warehouse is. The one with the case I touched. If they're still using it, there might be evidence. Proof of what they've been doing." Axel's eyes narrowed. "You sure you can find it again?" Marcus nodded. "I slept there for 2 weeks before I got chased off. I know the layout. I know where the loading docks are. I know which doors are unlocked." Bruiser let out a low whistle. "Kid's got guts, I'll give him that." Reaper looked at Marcus, really looked at him. This 11-year-old homeless boy who'd risked everything to help a little girl he didn't know, who was now offering to walk back into the lion's den to help them fight back. "You don't have to do this," Reaper said. "You gave Lily her sight. That's enough." Marcus shook his head. "They did something to me, too. I want to know what. And I want to stop them from doing it to anyone else." Lily reached out and took Marcus's hand. "We'll do it together," she said softly. "You help me see. Now I'll help you." Reaper wanted to tell her no, to lock her somewhere safe and never let her near danger again. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the same fire he carried, and he knew she wouldn't back down. "All right," Axel said, standing. "We move tonight. Small team. In and out. We get the evidence, we get out, and we figure out our next move." He looked at Reaper. "You're sure about this?" Reaper glanced at Lily, then at Marcus, then back at Axel. "They came for my family," he said. "I'm sure." Axel nodded once. "Then let's go to war." 3 hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Reaper stood outside the Helios Biomedical Warehouse with Axel, Bruiser, and 2 other club members. Marcus crouched beside him, pointing out entry points. Lily sat on Bruiser's bike a block away, under the watch of another angel who'd promised Reaper he'd die before he let anything happen to her. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and silent, its blue letters barely visible in the fading light. "You ready?" Axel asked. Reaper checked the knife on his belt, then nodded. "Let's finish this," he said. They moved toward the building, shadows swallowing them whole. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates, metal shelving, and industrial equipment. Marcus led the way, his steps sure despite the darkness. He'd lived here once. He knew its bones. They found the research lab in the back, sterile, cold, lined with computers and medical equipment that looked far too advanced for a forgotten warehouse. And on one of the screens, a file was still open. Axel stepped forward, reading the text, his face hardening with every line. "Subject tracking," he muttered. "Names, locations, dates of implantation." He scrolled down, and there it was. Subject 47, Lily Thompson. Implanted 6 years ago. Status, active. Reaper's vision went red. "They've been tracking her," he said, voice shaking. "This whole time, they knew exactly where she was." Axel kept scrolling. Then he stopped. "Reaper," he said quietly, "you need to see this." Reaper stepped closer. The next line made his blood freeze. Subject 03, Marcus Hayes. Implanted 11 years ago. Status, activated. Termination, authorized. Marcus stared at the screen, his face pale. "They're going to kill me," he whispered. Before anyone could respond, the warehouse lights blazed on, flooding the space with harsh white light. A voice echoed from the speakers overhead, calm, clinical, and cold. "Hello, Mr. Thompson." "Hello, Marcus. We've been expecting you." Reaper spun toward the door, but it was already too late. Armed men poured in from every entrance, surrounding them, weapons raised. And from the back of the warehouse, a woman in a white lab coat stepped forward, her face obscured by shadow. "My name is Dr. Adrian Kane," she said, "and I believe you have something that belongs to me. Like and subscribe now before everything changes." Reaper's hand moved toward the knife at his belt, but Axel grabbed his wrist, shaking his head once. 20 armed men surrounded them in a perfect perimeter, tactical vests and raised rifles making the message clear. Any move would be the last one they'd ever make. Dr. Adrian Kane stepped fully into the light, and Reaper finally saw the woman who'd turned his daughter into an experiment. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and cold gray eyes that studied them like specimens under glass. Her white lab coat was pristine, her movements precise and unhurried. "Lower your weapons," she said to her men, though her tone suggested she wasn't particularly concerned either way. "They're not going anywhere." The tactical team obeyed, rifles dropping to rest positions, but still ready. Marcus backed up until he hit a metal shelf, his breathing shallow and fast. Reaper shifted, putting himself between the boy and Dr. Kane. "You've been busy, Mr. Thompson," Dr. Kane said, her gaze flicking to the crystals Reaper still carried in his vest pocket. "Removing property that doesn't belong to you. Trespassing. Interfering with a classified research program." "Classified?" Reaper's voice came out like gravel. "You experimented on babies. On my daughter." "Your daughter was given a gift," Dr. Kane corrected. "Nanotechnology designed to enhance human vision beyond anything nature could achieve. The blindness was an unfortunate side effect, one we would have corrected when she reached the appropriate age. You turned her into a lab rat and walked away," Reaper spat. "Don't dress it up." Dr. Kane's expression didn't shift. The program was defunded prematurely. Resources were reallocated, but the subjects were never abandoned. We've been monitoring them. Waiting. For what? Axel demanded. For activation, Dr. Kane said, her eyes moving to Marcus. For someone like him. Marcus flinched as every eye in the warehouse turned toward him. Marcus was our first success, Dr. Kane continued. Implanted at 6 months old with a prototype neural interface designed to detect and manipulate foreign objects at the cellular level. We lost him when the facility was raided. For years, we thought the tech had degraded, become inert. She stepped closer, studying Marcus like a puzzle she was eager to solve. But then, 3 weeks ago, our sensors picked up a spike in neural activity. Someone had activated the interface. And when we traced the signal, it led us to a homeless boy in Charleston who could suddenly see things no human should be able to see. Marcus's voice cracked. "You made me this way. We made you extraordinary," Dr. Kane said. "And now that you've activated, you're invaluable. The only living proof that the technology works. That's why you're here," Bruiser said, his fists clenched. "You want him back." "I want both of them," Dr. Kane said, glancing at Reaper. "Lily is critical data. Marcus is the key to refining the next generation. Together, they represent billions of dollars in potential applications, military, medical, commercial." Reaper's blood boiled. "They're not products. They're kids. They're assets," Dr. Kane corrected. "And you're going to return them to me." "The hell I am." Dr. Kane sighed, as if disappointed by his stubbornness. She pulled a tablet from her coat pocket, tapped the screen twice, and turned it toward Reaper. The image showed Lily, sitting on Bruiser's bike a block away, exactly where Reaper had left her. The angel assigned to guard her stood beside her, unaware they were being watched. Reaper's heart stopped. "One word from me," Dr. Kane said quietly, "and my team moves in. Your daughter will be sedated and extracted within 90 seconds. The man protecting her won't have time to draw a weapon." Rage and terror warred inside Reaper's chest. He wanted to lunge at her, to rip the tablet from her hands and snap it in half. But he knew she wasn't bluffing. "What do you want?" he said through clenched teeth. "Marcus comes with me willingly," Dr. Kane said. "You hand over the crystals. And in exchange, I leave Lily alone. She keeps her vision. She lives a normal life. No one from Helios ever contacts her again." Marcus shook his head violently. "No, don't do it. Don't give me up for." "Shut up, kid," Reaper said, his voice raw. He looked at Axel, at Bruiser, at the other club members who'd risked everything to help him. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Dr. Kane watched him, her expression unreadable. "You have 60 seconds to decide," she said. Reaper's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to burn this place to the ground and take as many of them with him as he could. But Lily's face flashed in his mind. Her smile when she'd seen him for the first time, the way her eyes had lit up with color and life. He couldn't take that away from her. But he couldn't hand Marcus over to this monster either. 30 seconds, Dr. Kane said. Marcus stepped forward, his voice shaking but steady. "I'll go." "Marcus, no," Reaper started. "It's okay," Marcus said, cutting him off. He looked at Reaper with eyes far too old for his 11 years. "Lily deserves to be free. She deserves a life. I've been surviving on streets and in dumpsters for 2 years. This is the first time I felt like I mattered to anyone." Tears burned behind Reaper's eyes. "You matter to me," he said hoarsely. "You gave me my daughter back. You don't owe us anything." "I owe her everything," Marcus said. He turned to Dr. Kane. "I'll come with you. But you leave them alone. All of them. Forever." Dr. Kane nodded once. "Agreed." She gestured to 2 of her men, who stepped forward to take Marcus by the arms. He didn't resist. Reaper pulled the napkins with the crystals from his pocket and threw them at Dr. Kane's feet. "Take them," he said. "And if I ever see you again, I'll kill you." Dr. Kane bent down, retrieving the crystals carefully, slipping them into a sealed container. "You won't," she said. "This conversation never happened. This facility will be empty by morning, and Marcus will be well cared for." "Liar," Axel spat. Dr. Kane ignored him. She turned to leave, her men escorting Marcus toward the back exit. Marcus looked over his shoulder one last time, his eyes locking with Reaper's. "Tell Lily I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye," he said. Then he was gone, swallowed by the shadows and the cold efficiency of Helios Biomedical. Like and subscribe before the final moment slips away. The tactical team withdrew in perfect formation, leaving Reaper, Axel, Bruiser, and the others standing in the empty warehouse, the hum of machinery the only sound. Reaper's knees nearly buckled. Axel caught him by the arm. "We'll find him," Axel said. "We'll track them. We'll get him back." "No," Reaper said, his voice hollow. "We won't. She's too smart. Too connected. By the time we figure out where they took him, he'll be in another country or buried so deep we'll never reach him." Bruiser slammed his fist into a metal shelf, the clang echoing through the space. "We just let her take him. We just stood there. We saved Lily," Reaper said. "That's what Marcus wanted." But the words tasted like ash. 2 weeks later, Reaper sat on the porch of their apartment on King Street, watching Lily play in the small courtyard below. She was drawing with chalk, her movements confident now, her eyes tracking every line and color with the joy of someone seeing the world for the first time. She'd asked about Marcus every day for the first week. Reaper had told her the truth, that Marcus had made a choice to protect her, and that he was gone. She'd cried for hours. Now, she drew pictures of him, keeping his memory alive in bright colors on gray concrete. Reaper's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Yeah." Static crackled on the line. Then, faint and distant, a voice. "Reaper." His heart stopped. "Marcus." "I don't have much time," Marcus whispered, his voice tight with fear. "They think I'm asleep. I stole a phone from one of the nurses." "Where are you?" Reaper demanded, already on his feet. "Are you okay?" "I don't know where I am," Marcus said. "But I'm not okay. They're running tests. Every day. It hurts. And they're talking about doing something permanent. Something that'll make me like them." Reaper's blood ran cold. "Kid, listen to me. You hold on. You hear me? You stay strong. I'm going to find you." "You can't," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "They're too powerful. But I needed to tell you. Tell Lily that I don't regret it. Helping her see was the best thing I ever did." "Marcus." "There's something else," Marcus interrupted. "They don't know I can still use it. The ability. They think it only works on objects, but I've been practicing. I can see things in people now. Sickness. Damage. Things that could kill them." Reaper's mind raced. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe I can do more than just survive," Marcus whispered. "Maybe I can fight back from the inside." The line crackled. "I have to go," Marcus said quickly. "Don't try to find me. Just take care of Lily. Tell her I'm okay, even if I'm not." "Marcus, wait." The call disconnected. Reaper stood there, phone pressed to his ear, staring at the screen long after it went dark. Below, Lily looked up, as if she'd felt the shift in the air. "Dad," she called. "You okay?" Reaper wiped his eyes and forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "I'm okay." But he wasn't. And somewhere, in a facility with no name and no location, an 11-year-old boy sat in a cold white room, staring at his hands, wondering if he could turn the weapon they'd made him into something that could set him free. Like and subscribe to see if this story continues. 3 months later, Dr. Adrienne Kane reviewed Marcus's file in her private office. Progress was exceptional. The boy was adapting faster than any subject they'd ever recorded. His abilities were sharpening, expanding in ways the original models had never predicted. She smiled, making notes for the quarterly report. Then her phone rang. The director. Odd, he never called this late. Dr. Kane. The voice on the other end said, tight with panic. "We have a situation. Subject 03 is missing." Her pen froze mid-stroke. "What do you mean, missing?" "He's gone. Walked out of his room during the night shift. No alarms. No traces. Security footage shows him just walking through locked doors like they weren't there." Dr. Kane's blood turned to ice. "Find him," she said. "Now." But even as she gave the order, she knew it was already too late. Marcus was out there, and he wasn't running anymore. He was hunting.